I am so excited to introduce our community today to Kim Dwyer, clinical psychologist. Kim supports positive growth and healthy thinking, formation of positive habits, and general wellness. And we are just so fortunate to have your wisdom today. Welcome, Kim.
Hi, thanks so much for having me, Lindsay. I'm excited to talk. And I know we've already kind of bounced some ideas around. I think we've got like a really juicy, not what it sounds like on the surface kind of topic to talk about. So I'm excited to see what direction we go in.
Well, me too. You had thrown this out when we were emailing back and forth and said the joy of regret and other uncomfortable emotions. And I sat in that for a minute and I'm like, I can't wait to hear more about this. Like, can we just dive right in on this?
Yeah, we sure can. The idea of this topic came to me in thinking about how we're applying mindfulness. So mindfulness, the way it's used in popular culture might be slightly different than the way we might use it in psychology, but the best definition I've seen of mindfulness is directed attention to the present moment without judgment. And to me, there's three parts of that. It's directing our attention. So training our attention and really trying to keep our attention on one thing as opposed to like all these windows are open in my brain kind of attention, but I'm redirecting and I'm being intentional about where my attention is going. So like right now, my attention is as best as I can, 100% on you and on our conversation. I'm sure part of my attention's on what I'm going to say next. So that's the attention part to the present moment. So it's bringing our attention back to right now. And that might seem kind of counterintuitive because I think probably most people, if you ask them, like, are you paying attention to right now? They'd be like, yeah, of course I am. But we get so caught in our head. It's important to plan for the future and to think about things in the future. But sometimes we can get so lost into that future-oriented thought. And that's where a lot of anxiety, anticipatory grief, anticipatory anything is pretty much future-oriented. And then we can also get caught in the past. So like mulling through past situations, conversations, relationships, could have done, should have done, those kinds of situations are, also not in the past. And it's important to reflect on that and to glean information from that as well. But mindfulness is about noticing what that focus is. Is my focus on right now? Is that going to serve me? Is my focus on the future? And is that serving me well? Whereas sometimes when we get so caught into it, we kind of get glued to it and it just takes us where it's going to go, as opposed to like, am I deciding to engage with this future content and worry right now for my own use and growth, or am I off with it? And then the last part of the definition is without judgment. So noticing where our attention is, noticing the focus of our attention, and really not getting caught up in the good, bad, beautiful, ugly kind of judgment stuff, which is the judgments are of our mind applying concepts to information, which is super useful in how we learn and how we can organize so much information in the world. But often when we get into like applying a concept, we remove the possibility that information might fall outside of that concept. So it's like, oh, I know this thing. I know what it's like to have a relationship with a person like this, right? When we meet somebody new and we lump them into, this is this kind of a person and this is how they're going to relate to me and how I'm going to relate to them, as opposed to like a without judgment kind of thing is I'm here and I'm experiencing this person right now for the first time, as opposed to influenced by these other thoughts I have about people like this because of these other interactions I've had in the back. So that's kind of mindfulness in a nutshell. And we can apply mindfulness kind of to just about anything, but right.
Yes.
But when we apply mindfulness to, like, we can apply it to our body, which we're doing a lot, like during like yoga practices, or if we're doing a body scan, figuring out what's going on in our body. We can apply it to our thoughts, which is noticing where our thoughts are going without judgments, as opposed to like that example I just gave, getting glued into the idea of, oh, you're just like this other person I know. And then we're off to the races with like, here's how I'm going to respond because I know they're going to ask me to volunteer for this thing I don't want to do. And now I've got to be ready to, to tell them no. So we can pull out of that. And the term is we can defuse, so unglue from that thought and just examine, oh, I'm noticing I'm having this thought that this person is just like those PTA people that try to get me to volunteer. Can I just be curious and see if that's where it's going? Because maybe they're not. Maybe they're a completely different person. And then emotions. So we can bring that mindful attention to our emotional experience. And that's where this topic of the joy of regret comes from. Because, what's your immediate thought when I say, oh, I'm going to just throw you out there and let you feel regret for the next hour. What do you think about that?
Awful, right? It sounds painful.
Yeah. So some emotions might be subjectively more pleasant: happiness, joy, love, excitement, right? Others might be more subjectively unpleasant or uncomfortable: anxiety, regret, embarrassment, guilt, anger, fear. We could go on, and we probably have more names for uncomfortable emotions than for comfortable emotions, I think. But if we take the perspective that the emotion itself isn't harmful, I could sit here and feel really uncomfortable emotions. I'll backtrack a bit. Like, we probably don't want to stay in those states for a super long time, because we know it does all kinds of changes physiologically to us, and we release cortisol and like all this stuff that's not good for us over an extended period of time. But for a brief amount of time, to have the discomfort of, ooh, I'm really feeling regret right now. And what does that feel like in my body? Like, maybe it's a pit in my stomach. Maybe my heart starts beating a little bit faster than normal. Maybe I notice thoughts of, you should have done this thing, or that was a bad move, or what were you thinking? Uncomfortable, kind of judging ourselves thoughts that come up. But we can also, when we have that discomfort, we often want to remove it right away, right? Mm-hmm. So I think as a society, we do a great job of kind of numbing out emotions or masking emotions. We might go distract ourselves with electronics or television, or go on a shopping spree, or, have a couple cocktails or whatever our substance of choice might be.
When you say we do a great job of distracting, it's not to give yourself a pat on the back.
No, I think that's an area that our culture could probably use some help. But it's also implied in that these emotions are bad. Like, don't feel this way. And it's just not realistic. Like, these emotions are all part of the human experience. We're going to have times that are more comfortable emotionally and times that are less comfortable emotionally. The value that I really see in those uncomfortable emotions is if we don't distract from them, if we look at them, if we turn towards them and just try to explore them and understand them, again, that mindfulness. So they're in the present moment, and we can come at them without judgment. They're not necessarily good or bad. They just are. They're just present. And when we bring that mindful awareness to what's going on in our emotion state, we might notice physiological changes. We might notice thought changes. If we really sit and get still with it, I think often what we find in those uncomfortable emotions is some information about values. So I think about our five senses, sight, smell, vision, what am I missing? Taste, touch. Yeah. Yep. Those give us immediate present moment experience with the world around us, right? Like, that's our connection to everything outside of our internal self. Our emotions give us information about what's going on inside of us in the present moment. So what's happening in this thought process, what's happening in this body, in this physiological process and change, and how is that all integrating together? And then how does that connect with me? Like, and you can define that me. My brain, it's like capital letter M, but that could be your soul, your spirit, your psyche, whatever resonates. But that internal core piece that is having a reaction, like, what's that information about? So if you think about like a time that you had regret, what comes up for me really quickly is it's got to be like a should have moment. Like, I should have done this thing and I made this choice and now I'm regretting it. Just even using the word when I describe that, it's okay. There's something out there that, maybe I really want, I really love, and that's important information. And the choice I made in the past, maybe I did the best that I could at the time. And now I just have additional information and I can make a different choice in the future. So really letting that feeling come up and examining it, like, there's information there, right?
Yes. And I'm thinking this like holds spectrums, right? Like that there's your pretty easy examples of a food choice, and then like a regret behind it. And then really deep examples of something like an abortion or, like where the regret gets really strong. So all of it though, like, you are not omitting any of that. It all falls into the category of it's a learning moment that we can move forward from.
Right. And I think piggybacking what you just said, I think a piece where people can get really stuck. So like regret and guilt are probably like kissing cousins in whatever it is, the makeup of emotions. And, the regret is like, I want to do something different. And the guilt is I'm bad, or I guess there's shame and guilt in there. This makes me a bad person, or this decision that I made at this one point in my life. There's a little bit of the element of like the guilt and shame part is like, I'm now judging it from the lens of where I am right now. Maybe this is a decision I made when I was, 10, 12, 15 years younger. And now I'm like, oh my gosh, what were you thinking, girl? Like that is not in line with who you are and who you want to be as a person. But maybe it was in line with like your adolescent self or your young adult self that didn't have every piece online and the makeup of your psyche and your executive functioning and your frontal lobe development, all these other pieces that come in, right?
Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I can just see our listeners going, so what do I do with that? I get that I'm supposed to learn from it, but especially if you are judging your younger self, or like, what are some conversations you have around that?
Yeah. So I often work with folks around really working on generating self-compassion. I'm sure there are examples we could come up with of people that, make decisions that across the board we'd probably say are morally wrong. And at the time they even knew that it wasn't a good choice for them to make. I think a lot of the things that people are carrying around with shame and guilt and regret, may have been those choices that were, the best of a bunch of poor choices that could have been made at the time, or, not thinking through all the consequences of their actions because of age and development or life experience or whatever it might be. So really generating compassion for yourself, for who you were at a different point in time, thinking about talking to yourself the way you would talk to a friend. Most of us would not talk to our friends the way we talk to ourselves, right? Yeah, we're locked up in here with just us, our own self in there, and not always very gentle and kind to ourselves. I often will work with people and ask them to like really envision themselves at a different age in their life and really generate a sense of that person. And yes, it's integrated into who you are now, but she's also a different person than the she that's sitting here in this chair having a conversation with you, right? So looking at pictures of yourself, at younger ages in your life, really like connecting with who you were at that time, and as best as you can, like generating compassion and empathy for the difficulties that you had at that point in life, as well as if needed, like even some forgiveness for, whatever that thing is that you might be holding on to.
What does a breakthrough in compassion look like for you? Because I don't know about you, but I feel like that compassion component, self-talk, all of that, like you and I both see that probably daily with our clientele. And it's, I think, one of the hardest things to change.
Mm-hmm. That's why I think it can be a lot more, I'm not going to say easier, but more accessible, especially as people get older and have a little bit more like life experience around them, connecting with that younger piece. So like, I can sit here and think of my own children at certain ages. And if I'm holding a regret or something, some guilt against myself for the choice I made when I'm 16, now I can look at not just like kids I've worked with who are 16, but also my own kids at 16 and recognize, ooh, I wouldn't have given them that choice. Or, if I put them in my same shoes, they might have had the same reasoning that I had at that age and made a choice that might not have been a great one. So we can kind of generate it for others and then kind of bring it back in. Like, okay, just logically, if I'm going to apply that rationale to a choice a typical 16-year-old might make, and now I'm holding it against myself that I made that same choice at 16, it's just not fair, right?
Right.
It's an element of compassion. Also, we have to recognize and take ourselves off of whatever pedestal our psyche has put ourselves on, that we are above all this. Others might make mistakes, but like we're going to be perfect.
Yes.
That's a big
You
one.
nailed that. Yes. I think that happens to everybody, that so much extension of permission and compassion for others. But I don't deserve that. Like, that I hear that all the time.
And something I use a lot in working with parents that I've had to pull into like, okay, how do I help individuals who are adults to kind of reparent themselves around this, is we do a lot of parenting or kind of shaping societally through accomplishment and achievement, right? Like you get A's on your report card, isn't that great? We put you on the honor roll, or you get, extra recess or pizza or whatever, whatever the incentive is, or just praise, frankly, just praise. Yeah. Like, oh, you got these A's, you're so smart. And we could come up with examples in all different domains, not just academic, but all these domains of life. You won the soccer tournament, you're the prom queen or whatever, the prettiest girl, all these things. And when we build psyche on that, or not psyche, self, we build sense of self on accomplishment. It's kind of like a cheat. It's kind of easy because we can do these things, we can be good at them. And then we just stack up this little tower of who we are. But it doesn't have a lot of breadth to it. It's just kind of like this little tower of accomplishments. I picture in my mind, like we're sitting on top of this little, Greek looking column. And then eventually we're all going to fail. If we don't fail at some point, we just haven't been challenged enough. If you're just getting straight A's forever in your entire academic career, you just never been challenged, and you didn't, maybe that's got its own problems to it about not being challenged. But, then you're going to fail something, and you fail something. And a sense of self is I am worthy because I do, and I produce, and I'm perfect. And now I'm not. And like, that's just like the column just got chopped in half. You're like sprawling on the floor. Like, who the heck am I? You're like, now I'm not perfect. I must be worthless. And it's real dangerous. So in parenting, like I think really helping to build a sense of like, you are worthy just by having 10 toes on the earth and breathing air. Like you came into this world enough and worthy and unconditionally loved. And that's the part that we have to get back into our adult selves who may have lost touch with that you and me and everybody who's listening is just as worthy as any other baby that was born onto this earth. And our ability to receive love and to be here is not conditional on those things that we do.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. I love that you brought it back to the parenting side of it, because that really just helps any of us mamas go, And again, so easy to say it to a kid or to not, and be like, this is an area we really need to make sure we help grow.
Those are easy recognition points. When we say, oh, you got an A on your report card, I'm so proud of you. We're not just proud of this A on the report card, right? We're proud of like, oh, you worked really hard for the last 16 weeks. And I know you gave up, going out with your friends this night because you need to study for a test. So I'm also proud of the fact that you made a really good choice about how you used your time and your prioritization. That doesn't all necessarily get conveyed when you say, like, I'm really proud of you. You got an A on your report card. That's great. But we could back it up. Okay, if you're proud of a kid, why are you proud of them?
Mm-hmm.
And tell them that stuff, because the A on the report card that's meaningless in the grand scheme of life. It's you can prioritize within your life, and you can balance having friendships and studying, and you can, whatever. Show good behavior in the classroom. Like they're all the different things that we're actually trying to reinforce. We can be more deliberate about talking about those things.
Yes. Again, thank you. Thank you for describing, because I think that it's one thing to kind of know that we should be deeper, but then how do I go about that? So, man, you would be fun to pull on just for a parenting talk alone, because I think parents are left, just we all have questions, and no one's doing it 100% right, but it would be so nice just as a community, again, to be like, okay, that's something fun. Just that one tidbit. Let's all take that and go run with it for the week and really see what came out of us to our kids, what those conversations looked like. So I like that. Thank you. I don't want to pivot too far, and we'll probably come back to this, but I was reading this one bullet point of yours that was talking about worry versus planning. And I thought, ooh, this really hits home for my people, because we've got some worriers. And so kind of go into the planning versus worrying.
Sure. So I have a chapter in my book, Mindful Mondays. I think it's either called exactly this or close to this. If you're going to worry. My thought there is, I think of worry as when we're trying to plan and our brain is doing its best to plan and predict and control. But we don't have all the information, right? So we get caught in this loop of, well, if I do this, then I'll do that. But then if this other thing happens, then I've got to pivot and go that way. And we, as a species, are really good at doing that like thinking ahead and predicting and coming up with like conditional kinds of plans. it's probably one of the things that like makes us really successful. Like it's a safety feature, right? If we can think of like, if this bad thing happens, or if this, I'm in this dangerous place, I'm going to do this thing. And then if this other thing happens, I'm going to go over here. So it's probably helped us evolutionarily. But when we get into it around things that are not even necessarily safety oriented and they're not happening right now, we go into that future space. So again, that's like when I was talking about mindfulness earlier, like we're not here in the present, we're in the future. We don't have all the information. So it's really hard to do this, here's what's going to happen and here's what's going to happen. And then I'll do this other thing. But our brain is trying to, to fill in all the blanks, essentially, in that plan and all possible permutations of what could happen. The dangerous part is then our emotions come along for the ride. So we're not just thinking through like, oh, like something that's more like problem solving. We're caught in this, this thought process. Our emotions come along, and then our physiology comes along for the ride. So we get into basically activation of our sympathetic nervous system, otherwise known as fight or flight. We release, all the neurochemicals and hormones in our body that, increase our activation, get us ready for danger, for combat, for running away, for hiding if we need to. And that's uncomfortable and not good for us, quite honestly, physiologically, to be hanging out there for too long, especially because none of this stuff is real. It's all imagined, future possible threats. And a lot of times, like you talk to anybody with anticipatory anxiety, and I certainly include myself in that situation. I think we all have some anticipatory anxiety from time to time. And you ask them afterwards, well, was it as bad as you thought it was going to be? No, it never is, right? Yeah. So, but if you're going to worry, that the other piece of it is, it's often like in this back channel of our head, right? So you're trying to do work and you've got these worries going on, and you're trying to cook dinner or talk to your partner or do something with your children. And like these worries are keeping you from being fully present with what you want to be focused on. So if we can work to give the worry part of our brain the attention that it needs, and then I think when we actually focus our attention on it, we move out of worrying and into planning, because we're directing our resources and bringing more of like that logical problem solving piece to whatever the issue is, as opposed to, again, like having that window that you might think is minimized on your computer screen, but it's still like sucking energy from all your other programs. So like shut the window down, focus on making dinner, being with your kids, listening to your partner, doing your work, reading your book, whatever it is. And then set aside that time of like, if you have a concern that's really a concern that has to be problem solved, like give it the attention and the resources. And when you get to the point where you don't have, there's missing information because you haven't gotten to that far in life that you've got that information, write it down. Like, I don't know what will happen here because this other thing hasn't happened yet. And when this other thing happens, I'm going to come back and I'm going to look at my plan and look at my next step.
Which makes my brain immediately go to hiring a therapist to help really nail this down and do some actionable steps, or a coach, or because I always feel like that's that lost moment where you're like, I'm stuck. From my standpoint, I don't know. And then I always think there's this amazing, beautiful surprise whenever I approach a topic like that with my coach, that I always walk away so like, okay, I have a game plan. I know what I'm fighting for. It's this, so much better. So just really encouraging people, like, don't forget to use your resources.
Absolutely. And I think a part of what I resonated with when you were just talking is what we were talking about earlier, like that I'm stuck. Like, okay, can you turn into that stuck feeling? Like, what's there? Like, why is it coming? Why are you feeling stuck? Like that, for me, that's where the revelation comes from. And it's like, oh, I've got this stuff and I've got this stuff. And they're like, I don't see how they come together. And sometimes, it takes like just sitting, like acknowledging the stuck and sitting with it. And sometimes it takes, like you said, a therapist, a coach, a trusted and wise friend. It takes somebody who's emotionally removed from it to look at it and say, oh, here's your path through, or to understand your emotions. And you just, kind of just by giving you that insight, like then the path is just clear to you.
Right. And then I think it also comes with a belief system that you think there is a way, that I always admire my husband. I feel like there is never a moment where he does not believe that he won't get to the right answer, where I look at that and I envy it because especially if I'm outside of my comfort zone, I can definitely go into this space of like, oh, I don't know if we'll get there. Like, I don't even know who to ask. But kind of what you're saying is, it can be from an emotional or a reality, like the smarts thing or whatever, but we can always get there. We just need to understand how to approach it, is what I'm hearing from you.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So you have done so many fun things. Can we talk about this for a minute? I'm sitting here staring at, you have multiple books out in the world where I'm like, I have one and I don't know if I could go back to that well. And I love that you keep going. So tell us everything exciting you have going on.
Sure. So my most recent two books that are geared towards a kind of a general adult reader audience are Mindful Mondays, which I'm trying to think of the subtitle. It's Transforming the Everyday to Claim Calm and Reduce Stress. And then I have a Mindful Mondays journal, which is kind of daily reflections, for the same goal, or, reducing stress and having a calmer life. And the piece that really influenced writing Mindful Mondays is I would hear a lot from people like, I just don't have time for mindfulness. I'm not going to go sit and meditate. I can't be still. It's really hard for me to sit still. And we could take that on and address that, because that's a cognition that's maybe not accurate. But regardless, the idea with Mindful Mondays is that time informal meditation might be really helpful and useful to a lot of people. For most people, I think the goal in formal meditation is we're strengthening skills that we're going to then take off the cushion or take off the yoga mat and into life. So I use an analogy through Mindful Mondays of raindrops. So if we use an analogy of water to kind of going into that stream of whatever our collective consciousness or quiet or stillness or whatever you experience when you meditate, going on this a week-long meditation retreat, in nature, totally zened out. Maybe that's jumping into the ocean and just hanging out in the ocean for a week. And, the water is everywhere and it's plentiful. And maybe then you come back from that retreat and you're sitting on your yoga mat and Shavasana, or laying there in Shavasana, and, have 5 minutes of stillness. And maybe that's taking a shower or a bath or something where you're reconnecting with water. And those are all great things. But what happens when we take it off of the mat is the raindrops. So raindrops are tiny, but they're everywhere when it's raining out, right? So we can connect with these tiny moments of connection, of mindfulness, of just attention to the present moment, any point in our day, right? So it could be, I'm going to go wash my hands and really notice how warm the water is and the smell of the soap. That's reconnection, using our senses to connect to the present moment. I could, be sitting here having a conversation like we are right now and recognize, oh, my thoughts just jumped into the next thing I might talk about. I'm going to bring it right back now and really stay focused on what I'm talking about. So it might be that I'm noticing that my stomach's growling and recognizing that I'm hungry. That's just a present moment experience. It could be that my phone rings and I, see the name of who's calling and my heart starts beating a little bit faster. And I recognize, oh, I'm having some kind of emotional reaction to the idea of talking to this person. And again, with curiosity, I wonder why that's coming up for me right now. Because we've probably all had that situation, right? Where the phone rings and you see the name, you're like, oh, I'm not answering that.
Not today.
Not today. Whoever it is, ex, mom, child, aunt, mother-in-law. Yeah. And then we just be curious. Why am I feeling that way? And maybe that is the right choice to not answer the phone and let it go to voicemail. But, maybe that's just influenced by other conversations. And maybe today's an opportunity for a completely different conversation. So again, these raindrops are just moments of connection. The easiest one is our breath. Just take a breath in and feel it in your body and let that breath out.
Mm-hmm. Which we can carry around with us everywhere, right?
You're breathing. If you went to a meditation training or mindfulness training and the speaker was if you're breathing, biologically, you're like 99% there, right? There's not much else that has to happen. If you're already breathing, you're good. So
give yourself some credit right there. You already have a win in the day.
yeah, so that's Mindful Mondays. And then the Mindful Mondays journal kind of takes some of those practices and applies them more for folks who, really enjoy that reflective process of writing, with focusing not just on those raindrop moments, but also on moments through the day of gladness, of growth, of a difficulty, of goal setting, and kind of has a really, really short, like kind of abbreviated way of journaling. Because I think some people get into journaling like, oh, I don't want to write Dear Diary and 12 pages of who knows what to even write. So each day is just like a half a page. So it's like a real easy, no rules kind of journaling approach.
No, I love that. Are you supposed to, when you utilize both of your books, are they supposed to go at the same time together, or you kind of start with the Mindful Monday read and then bump over to the journal later?
They could kind of go any way. The journal has enough of an intro to it that I think for somebody who doesn't have the other book, they'll get the gist of what I'm talking about. And then the starter book, Mindful Mondays, does have a section in it towards the end on journaling that uses the same process. They could certainly be used together. And then the Mindful Mondays book also, each chapter has what, why, how is kind of the format. So what is the strategy? Why, the context, like psychologically, why does this work? And then the how is, how do I apply it? And then you get the strategy, go try it out for a chunk of time. I suggest a week, but it could be longer, it could be shorter. And then reflect. What kinds of situations is this helpful for? Is this a strategy I want to continue trying? What could I do to problem solve it? Like things like that. So hopefully the reader can, get as much benefit as possible from it.
Yes, I love that, because there's so many times with my members that we're like, let's deep dive into things, and anything that we put our attention to, we get more of, right? And so you're just giving this beautiful opportunity if somebody's going, hey, I'll take it from an emotional eating standpoint. I'm really struggling with emotional eating at the moment, to go the mindful route, but then to be able to read on it, to be able to write about it, to be able to think about it is like, now we're making some progress. Now we're getting that 5% change, or raindrops. I love that analogy, but little by little, right? And we gotta keep that focus even in the crazy of life, because we'll always have distractions. Exactly. But yeah.
And then my other two books. So I have a book called Intentional Private Practice Workbook. I wrote it for mental health private practice dreamers, launchers, growers, redefiners. Really, it would be applicable, I think, to most private setting, healthcare, helper, healer, like relationship-based kinds of business owners. So it starts, with some mindful awareness and some values focus, and identifying your values and how they show up in your business, or how you'd like them to show up in your business, and really empowers, sole providers or small group providers to just establish like a really strong mission and vision for their business, and translate that into the practices that are going to, help them flesh out that business the way they'd like. And then my last book, which I actually have in front of me, this one right here, is Rocky's Christmas Journey, which is a children's book. So I've been writing children's books for almost 20 years. This is the first one I've published, but I've got several others. Like this is kind of like the kind of shifting my career a little bit to incorporate something, pretty outside of my traditional psychology kind of practice. Rocky's Christmas Journey was inspired by a story that came out around the holidays in 2020 of a little saw-whet owl that was found in the Rockefeller Center Christmas tree. So I saw that news story and I was like, oh gosh, this is a book, and tried to walk away from it. And like, it just kept, like, it wouldn't leave my brain. And I like wrote it, and I'm like, because of the timeliness of it, if I'm going to do anything with this, like this is it. And maybe that was like the push I needed from the universe of like, go publish these books, and here's one, but you got to do it now or you're not going to do it. So like I wrote it in like an afternoon. I worked with my editor, had it like ready to go by January, and spent the first half of 2021 like getting it ready for publication, and then it came out September. So the piece that kind of unites that with the other work that I've done is the other books, the other children's books I haven't published, some of them are, this is mostly for fun. Some of them are kind of just for fun. Some of them are more in the realm of what I would call self-help for kids. So they're meant to be read together with an adult, but it's to support around mindfulness or around anxiety or around sleep or some other topic. But even the ones that are like, quote unquote, just for fun, I've included in them a guide for parents and caregivers on how to read the book together and how to ask questions about it to support emotional literacy, feelings vocabulary development, reading fluency. Like, there's so many things that when we sit with a child and read together, so many ways that we can support them. The book hopefully is an enjoyable story that can, just be a story, but I'm also trying to like guide parents and for people that aren't in that realm or have education in their background, like how to use this now as a tool for building consistency and routine and reading skills and feeling skills and emotion regulation and all these other kinds of pieces.
Wow. First of all, congratulations.
Thank you.
I think all of this is amazing and exciting. And again, even just if we just hone in on children's books alone, I feel like keep going on getting those other ones published and maybe stuff is like that out there. I just don't feel like a lot of parents have that in their hands until they are matched and like maybe they're in therapy and then they've like, oh, there's resources. But I don't think the average person comes home from the library like feeling equipped to go help their child in certain areas. I don't know. So thank you. Like you're putting so much out into the world that I love and I think is so useful. And I know you put so much time and energy into that. Where is the best place to purchase your books and to find you?
Sure. So the books are all on Amazon. At least I think they're all on Barnes & Noble as well. So kind of like go where you like to buy books and you should be able to find them. Best way to find me is my website, which is drkimdwyer.com. And there's kind of like that landing page will redirect you if you're a potential therapy client, potential coaching client, or if you're interested in the books. So if you click on the books, it'll take you to a separate area that shows all the books, has links to go buy them. Mindful Mondays is a sample chapter that you can download. And anything else related to other programs that I'm kind of spinning off from those will have their home there. And then social media. So Instagram, I'm Dr. Kim Dwyer. Facebook, my business page is Dr. Kim Dwyer. So pretty easy to find through those channels.
Perfect. I'm going to link up with you when we get off the show. I love this about having podcast guests that are so inspirational because I just start using that as my Instagram feed. So when I jump on Instagram, I am surrounded by people that I'm like, I respect. I love the insight I continue to get. It's just, I want everybody to experience that, like curate your social media so it speaks wisdom over you as well as pours motivation into your soul every day, because we can use it all for good if we choose to.
Yeah. And I'm going to be sharing social media will probably be the easiest place to find this, but I'm going to be starting a program called Balance and Bloom. That's going to start with just some free, kind of like power hour, almost like if you've done co-working, kind of like that, but it's definitely not working, but just giving people an hour with just some guidance and accountability to dedicate the hour to themselves in whatever way fills them up. So if you need to, go exercise, sleep, read, give yourself, time to like lay on your yoga mat or sit on a cushion in meditation, clean your desk off, clean out a kitchen drawer that's driving you crazy, whatever it is, just like an hour to really focus on you. Because I think when we kind of come back to ourselves and really get in touch with what we need, there's really some power there. And my own personal belief is like, our soul knows what we need. We just got to like shut the brain down, shut the mind down and start listening.
Hop into it, right?
Exactly.
Okay. As we kind of wrap up here, I love to ask this of my guests is if you were to wrap your arms around our audience and send them off with this kind of final, I hope and pray you hear this out of me today, what would that look like?
That's a great question. I think I would say you already know what you need. You just have to listen to it. So be gentle and compassionate with yourself. Embrace those uncomfortable emotions like regret and guilt and embarrassment and shame. Don't embrace them to hold them forever, but look at them and see why they're showing up and what they have to tell you. Take what you need to learn from it. and then release them. Although really once we've learned from them, I think they kind of release on their own at that point. Like this active pushing them away, they're just going to go because you took the information already.
So good. Thank you so much, Kim. We really appreciate you.
Thank you so much, Lindsay, for having me here.